it's Michelle from Not Too Shabby. I'm excited that you're going to be joining us for our upcoming jewelry box painting and design transfer workshop. So this video is to help you get your jewelry box ready for the workshop itself. So first thing you want to do, and this is optional, you don't have to, is if it's not too dusty, you can wipe it down with a soft cloth, but I'm actually going to start by removing my knobs. Some jewelry boxes will have little screws in the back of the drawers. This one does not, as you can see. So I use the knobs and they just gently screw out this little guy. So go ahead and take all your knobs off if you want. And if you don't want to, you can also paint your knobs. Vintage jewelry boxes are all very different, but most of them do have some sort of felt or velvet lining in their drawers. Many of them, when you open them up, have little mirrors inside of them. Some of them will have glass panels. So you're just going to have to gauge what you need to do to prep your piece as you go through the process and look to see what style of jewelry box you have. But I know that when this gets opened up, I'm going to want all of this painted. So in order to have a really nice clean paint finish, we're going to have to tape off some of the edges. So you can do that. I'm going to tape off the mirror. And I'm going to work and tape off all of these velvet edges inside of the jewelry box as well, because I don't want to get paint on the velvet. Small areas, it's really hard to get your tape tight around the corners. But that's okay, because what we're going to do is, once you get your tape on here, don't worry about any overflow on the edges, because you can take a razor blade or an X-Acto knife or box cutter and cut off the excess tape around those edges. Like this. And you'll get really crisp, clean corners. Once you get everything taped off how you want it, now it's time to start painting. You have a 2-ounce sample pot that was provided for you in the color of your choice. I have a little guy of Lem Lem, which is a really pretty minty green color. I'm going to start by shaking it really well just to make sure it's mixed up well. Okay. And I'm going to be using 3 different paintbrushes to paint this, but you certainly can get away with only using one. I have my small Annie Sloan paintbrush, and I'm planning on using this for the faces of the drawers, as well as the outside body of this jewelry box. I also have 2 of her smaller artist brushes. I don't know if I'm going to be using these, but I'm guessing I will on the smaller edges along the outside. Now, if you're using the big brush, I would definitely recommend taping these edges where the felt lining is. I'm planning on using this really small brush on my edges, and I'm hoping that that's going to be enough of a size difference that I don't have to tape, but I can still get clean edges. We'll see. I'm going to do it and we'll see how it goes, and if I have to end up taping them, then I will. Alright, now that I've got everything mixed up really well, I'm going to start by painting the inside of my box. And I like to use all my paint, so I'm going to use the paint on the lid to get these small areas. And I'm starting with my small brush. I know that this is going to probably take 2 coats, so I'm not really worried about getting great coverage. The second coat's going to fill in any of the gaps. This little brush is really nice for these smaller details inside the jewelry box. When you're painting, anytime you have flat edges and surfaces like on here, as I go along the side of this, the paint gathers along this edge. So while you're painting it, you want to be sure to smooth the paint on these edges so that you don't get clumpy paint like this. have one coat on the inside, I'm going to keep this open to let it dry, and I'm going to start working on the drawers. You want this to be completely dry before you do a second coat, and I also want it to be completely dry before I close it. And I've got this guy propped open with a little paintbrush. Again, this is one of those examples. Every box is going to be a little bit different, so you may have to manipulate it differently than I am because of the style of your box. For the drawers, I'm going to use my Annie Sloan brush because it covers better, and these are nice flat surface areas, so it'll go a little bit quicker. Okay, so I have all of my drawers painted. There's 4 of them. I painted the front and the sides and the top little edge. I chose not to paint this top edge. We're gonna clean that up when the paint is dry. Now, my inside is still a little damp because it's only been about 5 to 10 minutes. It didn't take very long to paint those. So while this is drying and it's open, I'm gonna work on painting the body of my jewelry box. When you're doing the body, if you have drawers in your piece, I want you to pay attention to where those drawers go. They're gonna sit flat, usually along this edge. You can see the runners inside of here. So I know that I don't need to paint the entire inside, but I definitely wanna paint probably up to the runners so that when the drawers set inside of it, and you can see this edge, the edge is painted and it's not wood. So look at your jewelry box and kind of get an idea of where those drawers sit and how far in you need to paint. I have my first coat of paint on here. All in all, in this medium-sized jewelry box that opens, it has a top, an inside, 4 drawers. It took about 45 minutes for me to paint this first coat. And it also doesn't look super awesome, but that's okay because the second coat is really going to fill in some of the wood that you can see peeking through. So as soon as it's dry, which this is dry, and I'm going to start on the inside again, just like I did for the first coat, I'm going to add my second coat. These little containers of paint that you have though, as you've used it, I've used about half of the paint in it, so I should have more than enough for the second coat, but my paint's also getting a little bit on the thick side. So what I've got is a small cup of water right here. I'm gonna add just a couple drops, maybe a teaspoon at the very most, and I'm gonna stir it up just to loosen up the paint a little bit. So when I get that second coat on there, it glides nicer. If you are using white as your base coat, you don't want to do this for the second coat. However, when you get ready to do a third coat of white, because most whites take 3 coats, you can add a little bit of water to thin it out. But if you're doing the other colors, usually your second coat is enough. And it's not wet or dripping, so if you see, it still doesn't drip off my brush, but it's a lot looser. So here goes, that second coat. Just like the first one, I'm starting on the inside. dry, we're basically done and ready for our workshop. For those areas that you taped, don't take your tape off. We want you to leave it on there because when we're done with our transfers, we're gonna do some wax finishes and we wanna keep this taped up. So leave the tape on there. You're all set. It's not going to look totally perfect. It's not even gonna look finished, but it's ready for the next step. I want you to remember, do this at least 24 hours in advance because we need this to dry really, really well before we put those design transfers on there. And it should take you about an hour to an hour and a half. This one's a little on the big side. There's a lot of areas inside and out. It took me about 2 hours to paint both coats, and that includes the dry time. So message me if you have any questions. Give me a call at the shop or shoot me an email, and I'm happy to get you through this process of getting those first couple coats of paint on there and getting it ready for the actual class. I hope you have fun, and I can't wait to see you.